Hi, everyone. I am Rachel Peniston, Manager of Partnership Programs for the NFCC, and your host for today's Financial Facts Chat. If you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. And if you enjoy today's show, please like, comment, subscribe, share. All of that helps demonstrate your support for nonprofit financial counseling and education, and it keeps our channel going. And I'm joined once again here by Bruce McClary, SVP of Communications for the NFCC. How are you doing, Bruce?
Hi, Rachel. Hi, everybody. Doing great. And by the way, if you're watching live, happy St. Patrick's Day. It is quite a day for celebration. It's kind of gloomy here, though, so it's not the kind of day where you would want to get outside and party much, but maybe the gloomier the day, the more reason to party. I don't know. But
I like that idea. Why not?
It's a little bit gloomy here, but there's a lot going on. Crazy week, really. Just with all the things that are happening right now, keeping us busy. A lot of the programs that we're focusing on, I was able to communicate within the network of member agencies about programs like Renter Advantage, which is a program that kicked off providing help for renters who are struggling. We've got plans coming up for all kinds of things throughout the year, a big member conference. I was communicating with our member agencies about that. And then I've been talking, the conversations I've had with journalists this week have been really interesting. I don't know how much of that I can say because the articles haven't published yet. I don't want to make anybody mad by sharing their really cool article topic. But I think in general terms, there's a lot of focus right now on the stimulus checks and more people talking about that and the stimulus package and how people can benefit there. Of course, it's tax season, so people have questions about that. And then housing is a big issue right now, too. So some of the interviews that I did were talking about housing, especially home buying, which it's interesting because we think about the economy and where that ended up, but yet there's still a lot of interest in buying homes, and people are out there. The market is hot in some places. So there are a lot of questions about, well, what credit score should I have if I go apply for a mortgage? What do I need to think of before what's my checklist on what to have before I buy a house? And then the other topic that I was kind of surprised about this week that kind of spiked, even though student loan borrowers right now for federal student loans don't have to make payments because of the administrative forbearance that's in place, there are a lot of questions about refinancing federal student loan debt, which I thought was interesting because why would you do that right now if you're benefiting from 0% interest and you don't even have to make payments and you're not being penalized for it? But I guess the news is, the expectation is that the interest rates on federal student loans, or not federal, the interest rates on private student loans might come down a little bit.
Okay.
So for the people borrowing, that have private student loans, maybe it is a good time to think about refinancing because you don't have the same options for affordable repayment that you do with the federal student loans. So
Got it.
Interesting topic, but a lot of stuff in the news this week on the personal finance side. And even debt collectors are worming their way into the news, as debt collectors sometimes do. So there's a little bit of that there as well. So what's on deck for us today? I know we got a lot of questions from people over the past week to our Ask an Expert. So we've probably got a lot to talk about today and a lot of different topics.
We do. We have a number of questions. Before I get started with our questions, I did want to remind everyone, we're always happy to entertain your questions. Please do send us an email, or go ahead and type in the chat box here. If we are able to get to your question today, we will try to address it on our live stream. If we can't get to it today, we'll make sure that somebody gets back to you because we really do want to answer your questions. So let's jump in with our first question, which is, my husband recently passed away. We have a joint credit card at a credit union, and I've continued to pay the debt as agreed. The bank is insisting that I reapply for the credit card. Is this something that I have to do? Due to my financial situation, I don't really want to reapply. I'm trying to protect my credit score, and I believe reapplying will close the original account and open it as a new account, which will negatively impact my credit score. So what do you think about that, Bruce?
First of all, to the person who wrote that, I'm really sorry for your loss. It's a difficult time when you're grieving the loss of someone close to you, but yet you're also confronted with a lot of the details of managing personal finance and untangling some of the obligations that you need to untangle during this time. So, my heart goes out to you under these circumstances, and I certainly hope that you have the support of people around you for a lot of what you have to do. But with regard to the conversation that you're having with your creditor, there's there are a couple of things to keep in mind. So if it's a joint account, and especially with a credit card as an unsecured debt, there's really no collateral here that's associated with the loan. So it's an unsecured line of credit. You have to keep in mind a couple of things. The terms of the account, of the credit application itself. So any change in the account, based on the terms, again, if you go back to the terms of the credit agreement and you look to see what they say, it may be that there is a requirement that if anyone is removed or added to the account, that you go back through the approval process as you would with a new line of credit. So it's certainly not it's not unprecedented that they're asking this of you at this time, that you apply for a new account. And the reasons that they can close this account down, could vary. They could depend, and it depends on what's in the original credit agreement and what's in the terms of the account and how it's structured. So I would recommend that you go back and look at that to see if, in fact, what they're encouraging you to do is truly your only option. And if you do have an option to keep the account open, you would be able to find that in the credit agreement. But closing the account and opening a new one will have a temporary negative effect on your credit score. It'll do that in a couple of ways. Of course, applying for a new line of credit creates a hard inquiry on your credit report. So that's one way that it can negatively impact your credit score in a very, very minor way. This is like a blip. It's not significant. But the more significant way that could impact your credit is that the original account would be shut down and a new account would be opened in its place. And if there are any changes that take place because of the credit application process, let's say, for example, you're approved for a line of credit that's less than the original line of credit that's shut down, that will change the overall credit ceiling, your overall credit limit, and it will bring it down a little bit from where it was before, closer to the balances you owe. So that means there's less room between the balances you owe and your overall credit limit. That may have a more significant and lasting impact on your credit score in a negative way, potentially. So your concern is valid, but what your options are at this point, of course, may be determined by what the terms are of the original agreement with your creditor, and whether or not they have the latitude to shut the account down if you do not reopen the account, if you're not given other options. And one possibility may be to keep the account open as it is, but restructure it in a way that it doesn't appear as though you're closing one account and opening another. So talk to your creditor about that. I mean, they should be able to give you the details about how this is going to work. And then if what I imagine is possible does actually present itself as an option, then it's likely that you could end up coming out of this better off than the worst case scenario where you'd have to shut an account and open a new one. It could be that they could just restructure the existing account, keep it open, but just have you as the sole account holder and restructure it that way. So number of different options, but it does mean that you should probably have a conversation with your creditor to find out exactly how this would work and how this would impact your credit. If you're not getting answers from the person that you're dealing with directly, ask to escalate the matter until you get the answers you need.
Thanks, Bruce. That's an interesting question there. We have another unusual one here. Should I try to negotiate anything while resolving credit card debt by paying in full? The credit card debt is still with the original creditor. It kind of sounds like my only options are either a settlement or to pay it in full. I do have the option to pay in full. Am I supposed to negotiate anything, or should I just go online and pay it?
That's a good question. So the option here is to settle or pay in full. And the situation, it sounds to me as though the account has not gone to a third-party debt collector, which is really good. That's actually good news. Once it goes to a third-party debt collection agency, that's about as bad as it can look on your credit report. And the fact that it's still with the original creditor also means that if it was a credit card, for example, and I don't know, the details aren't really brought forward in the way the question was worded, but it's possible then that the account may not be so far behind that it couldn't be reopened or rehabilitated, which is good. Once an account is charged off, that's kind of like the point of no return, and an account can't be reopened. But pre-charge off, there are possibilities where a creditor, depending on the stage where of delinquency, where your creditor can, once you make good on the balance that's due, they can reopen the account. And having an open account that's in good standing can actually help rehabilitate your overall credit health and your credit score. So think about it that way. So if you're in a position to pay in full, you may reap some of the benefits that extend beyond just paying the account off itself. If in fact you want to continue using that line of credit, or if you want to benefit from having an open line of credit that's in good standing, so it helps restore your credit health. So that's, again, paying off an account in full always looks better than settling for less than the full balance. No matter what anybody tells you, it always looks better. If you have to go to a lender in the future and the account says settled for less than the balance owed, or less than the full balance, and they put that side by side with somebody whose credit report shows that they paid off an account in full, the one who paid off the account in full may have a better chance of loan approval. They may get a better interest rate. Their credit score may also be a little bit better, depending on where they are in the timeline, because of the difference between those two actions and what impact it has on your credit report. So if you're in a position to pay it off in full, I'd recommend doing that, as long as it doesn't derail all your other financial obligations and put you in a situation where you're worse off financially. If you have no other choice and you feel that paying it off in full would derail some important obligations that you have and put you in a bad situation, then maybe you would want to consider the benefit of negotiating settlement for less than the full balance, and negotiating it yourself is the best way to go in that case. So hope that answers your question. Good luck with that. And it sounds like you're doing a good job communicating with your creditor, but communication means asking questions and getting all the answers you need before you make a decision. So good luck with that.
Thanks, Bruce. Moving right along to our third question today. If an authorized user on my credit card that no longer has access to my card but remains listed as authorized accumulates debt via other means, can my credit be damaged or negatively impacted? What do you think?
Well, okay, so this is interesting. Authorized user, being an authorized user on somebody else's credit card is not uncommon. And oftentimes it's a way for people to help others build credit if somebody brings you onto their account as an authorized user. I benefited from that. As a college student, I was brought on as an authorized user with my parents' credit card, and it helped me establish credit and get my footing, and then off I went. And here I am. But if the borrowing activity is not related to that account itself, and if you don't share any other financial obligations with this authorized user, then you have nothing to worry about. What they're doing in some other area is not going to impact your credit. If anything that they're doing does show up on your credit, and you don't share any other accounts with them, it's highly likely that that's an error, and you should dispute it with the credit bureau. It's easy to do. It's funny. We talked about last week. We talked about what the credit bureau knows and doesn't know, and when they ask you those security questions, and how I was kind of shocked that they asked me a question about property my sister owns, and I don't share any financial obligations with her. And initially, it made me worry, like, oh my gosh, is something of hers on my credit report? I got to get that off of there now. Or maybe I'd leave it on there if it's good. But anyway, so the bottom line is no. They're
Hey, Bruce, I think you froze for a minute. Did you get to finish what you were saying?
Where did I leave off? I didn't.
I think you were just wrapping up your question.
Oh, okay. Bottom line, I just was making the point that, they're the authorized users borrowing activity and payment activity on other accounts that you're not associated with, it's not going to affect your credit.
Okay, great.
So rest easy.
Good to know, for sure. Let's move on to our fourth and final question today. Why has paying off credit card debt negatively impacted my credit scores? That's a mystery.
That is a mystery, because everybody says keep your credit card debt low, pay it off whenever possible. It's just good financial behavior. It makes sense. It saves you money over time. It's good for the bottom line. Gives you more money to put in your pocket, to put in savings, to set aside for all the goals that you have that are important to you. So, the issue may be related to other things. And I think where this really has maximum impact is if you have, let's say you don't have a lot of accounts reporting to your credit file, and let's say this is the only account you have. Keep paying it down and paying off the balance is good. But because you have a thin file, this is what they call a thin credit file. Because you have a thin credit file, that may be more of what you're being penalized for. It's not necessarily that you're paying your balances off, but you may just not have a lot of stuff reporting. You may not have a lot of open accounts. And I say a lot, but you don't have to have a lot to move from a thin file to what would be a more complete credit file, a balanced credit portfolio. You could have a credit card account. You could have a closed-end loan, an auto loan and a credit card account, a student loan and a credit card account. Any combination of a few different accounts reporting creates a little bit more diversity in your credit file, which is a factor that is a part of the credit scoring model. So if, that may be more the case than just paying it off, because I would encourage you not to carry debt from month to month, not to pay the higher interest rates that or to pay interest over time that costs you more, and to keep those balances low. So that is good financial behavior, paying down your balances, keeping your balances low, trying to pay them off before the billing cycle rolls into another. So I don't necessarily think that's what you're being penalized for. There may be other factors influencing the credit file. And again, one likely factor, it may not be it, is just the fact that it may be a thin file situation with your credit history. So that's the answer there. But again, don't feel bad about paying off your accounts. That's a good thing.
Thanks, Bruce. Good to know. I'm not seeing any other questions submitted today in our chat window, but just as a reminder, you can always contact us on email or comment on one of our blog posts or comment on our Facebook or YouTube recordings. Feel free to submit questions if you do have them. I think we could dive right into our latest personal finance challenge, which was the no spend weekend.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I can't wait for this discussion. I cannot wait. So,
How did it go?
you're asking me to go first. Okay. Yeah, it went well. So, just to give our viewers, listeners, update on what this means. So, we agreed last weekend not to spend any money, not to spend a penny. So, from midnight Saturday morning to midnight Monday morning, I guess. Yeah. So Saturday and Sunday, both full days, we were not supposed to spend anything. And that literally meant anything. Like you couldn't go out and buy a meal, no grocery shopping.
No online, anything.
Yeah. You couldn't you couldn't use your money to pay for public transit. You couldn't, nothing, none of that. So I jammed a lot of spending into Friday night. I'm going to be honest. I, I spent like that was the last day on earth. Like that was, I bought, mansions and yachts and, private islands. No, so I did most of my necessary weekend spending that evening, which was good. I mean, it's good. I ordered groceries. I got, I took care of a few things there. But when Saturday morning rolled around, I didn't feel I didn't feel like I would have a difficult time through the weekend, but there were a couple of times when I almost didn't make it. So I go out and I do a lot of exercise outdoors. I mean, a good chunk of the day. It's like 3 hours of being outdoors exercising. And I did it around lunchtime Saturday. Well, I had water with me. I always take my water, but I didn't have anything to eat. And I started getting hungry. and I was about 8 miles from home and I was starting to get hungry.
That's a long way.
And I was on foot. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is not going to go well. This is not going to turn out well. But I made it. So I made it back home. And then Sunday, what I did, learning from my mistake Saturday, is I bagged a bagel. I bagged a bagel and some munchies and took it with me. And I did it around the same time. So it was like 2 hours, 3 hours of exercise, and I was okay. But that's where I almost fell off the wagon there. And the other thing is too, dinner was difficult because I got home Saturday night dinner, and I looked in my fridge and I'm thinking, as bad as my cooking is, I really want to eat out tonight, but I know that I'm going to have to cook my own food. So part of the no spend weekend challenge, you can't go out and buy a meal. So I had to use the resources I had to make a dinner Saturday night, which, my cooking is terrible. So it was awful, but I saved money. And at the end of the weekend, I didn't spend a dime. I did not spend a single penny through the weekend. So I felt really good. I was excited. And I thought I was going to lose this challenge because I thought, you would find a way to actually come out net positive, like you'd find a $20 bill on the sidewalk or something.
I never find those. I'm so sad. Some people have all the luck with that kind of thing, but not me.
How was your no spend weekend? Be honest.
I'm going to be honest. So I actually did spend some money, and the reason is because I have a carbonated water seltzer maker that is actually supposed to save me money. Instead of buying cans of carbonated sparkling water, I can make them at home. But the problem is,
does it save you money? Does it? What's your opinion on that?
I think it does. But the issue is the cartridges run out. They no longer carbonate water. You have to replace them.
So CO2 cartridges that you buy at the store. Yeah,
exactly. And I've been trying to replace them for 6 months. So they've been sitting empty. I have 3 empty ones. Every time I would go to the neighborhood store, they were always out of stock. This weekend, here
it comes, folks.
Yeah. We found them. And so I decided, okay, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to cheat. So I did cheat. on that.
How
But
much did you spend on that? What was the dollar amount?
I think so I bought 3 cartridges, something like $45, around that much. So
Okay.
it's an investment, but the thing is, if you take the old cartridges back and exchange them for new ones, you get them, well, some great deal, half off or something.
Okay, so it's like in the old days when you would take Coke bottles back to the
Yeah.
grocery store and you get like a few cents or something. Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
unfortunately, I would have done it any other weekend, but they go out of stock so quickly because I think they're a very popular item. So I did cheat there. However, aside
Mhm.
from that, I managed not to spend any other money and I planned very well. I'd say usually I go out and get a coffee and a pastry kind of as like a little brunch treat on the weekends. I
Mhm.
didn't do that this weekend. Um, I didn't do any grocery. I had planned to do that at other times. I think the funny thing is, because we knew this was coming, I did plan, and like you, I did spend money earlier in
Right.
anticipation of not being able to spend it. So, in that sense, I don't know if I saved money by doing this.
Yeah.
I think my take on that question is that I don't think you're going to. It's tough. It's a tough challenge. I don't know that it's going to give you a huge amount of savings. This might be something that works well for people who find that they're spending lots of money on little things that sort of add up. And so if they just make a hard and fast rule, today's a no spend day, they
Yeah.
that might have an impact for them. It might be something to kind of educate yourself, give you some confidence, like, hey, I can save money. It might encourage someone to pack up lunch from home instead of spending it out at a restaurant or a fast food place, like what happened to you. So in that sense, I think it might be valuable for maybe some small gains here and there. Overall, I don't know that this was like massively effective or had a really huge impact on my personal finances. What was
Yeah.
your take?
My take was the same. I mean, I don't spend a lot on weekends normally. I just don't. I spend a lot of time outdoors, and doing that around here means, taking advantage of free access to parks and recreation areas. So it doesn't, there's very rarely do I spend a lot of money or any money on the weekends. So a lot of my regular weekends over the summer, to be honest, are no spend weekends. So it's not really saving me beyond my regular spending habit. And to your point, I mean, a lot of the spending that I would have done last weekend before the no spend weekend challenge took place on Friday night. My question, though, to you is, how much spending during the weekend did you defer to someone else and have
Yeah.
them spend for you? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So I'm very lucky to have a very kind-hearted, generous boyfriend who treated me to a takeout dinner.
Aha. Okay.
I told him I'm not supposed to spend any money this weekend, and he said it's okay. It'll be my treat. So I was very lucky to get to enjoy that. And I think, that is another lesson for people who, are married or have
Mhm.
a partner or even a roommate. If you do a no spend weekend, are you just passing off the expense to your partner, or roommate,
Well,
or
or
husband or wife?
or it's an opportunity to do it together, like to
Yeah.
both of you have a no spend weekend,
Yeah.
and see how far that goes. Then neither can treat the other to a nice dinner.
Yes.
Uh,
I think if I did this challenge again, I think I would, try to get him on board to participate as well, because I do sort of feel like maybe I just passed off the expense to him. And next time I'm going to have to eat it when I inevitably end up treating him for the next
mhm.
thing we do.
Exactly. So, what is the next challenge? What are we going to do next?
Our next challenge is one that I am really not excited about. And the reason for that is because it's to talk to our creditor to optimize our account, which means very likely getting on the phone and waiting to talk to someone, which I hate.
Well, it depends. I will tell you this. I've had really good experiences with my creditors. And whenever I've had to call, I've gotten through pretty quickly. It depends on the time of day and the day you do it, though. So you really have to think about that when you call. But it does vary. And, I would be lying to everyone if I said that you get right through if you try to call. But this challenge really speaks to an area where people have a level of discomfort. And if you check out at nfcc.org, if you go to the website and you look up our data and research under the resources tab, there's the annual Consumer Financial Literacy Survey, which one of the recent surveys showed that this is an area where people are reluctant, and very few people actually do regularly communicate with their creditors in a way where they're asking to see if there are better terms or if they could benefit in some way from lower interest or other account adjustments that would make it better for them. So, we always advise people communicate with your creditors regularly. Well, now it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is and do it ourselves. So
well said.
So
I am not looking forward to it. Any tips you can give me, Bruce, that will get me quicker access to them so I don't have to spend time on the phone? Like, for example, what time of day should I try to call them if I don't want to spend time waiting?
Yeah, exactly. So some of the websites, they actually tell you when the best time to call is. Sometimes they'll do that.
Okay.
But
thank you. I'm going to look that up.
We do have a question that came in the chat. So I just want to address that before we wrap up. Someone is asking if it's a good idea to put some of your savings in a CD as a way not to spend money. That's a really good point. We go back to the no spend weekend challenge. If you really want to optimize things and really make this work for you in the best way, you can calculate what you typically spend on a weekend. And then as you have your no spend weekend, reserve that amount of money you would have otherwise spent on stuff like, meals out or CO2 cartridges for your fizzy water. And then you can put that money away in savings or save it up enough so that you can move it over into a higher yield CD, as is the suggestion in the question there. And then you get more out of it. So that's a really good suggestion. Replace spending with savings and you'll get more out of it. So I appreciate that question. It's very good.
Yeah. And I also really like the idea of putting your money away somewhere that you can't get it. That has really been effective in helping me save, because if it's sitting in my checking account, I am very tempted. And so it's great to have an option like a CD or even any type of retirement account or all kinds of different things that, your money's
higher
not
yield.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
Good question. Well, okay. So our assignment is pretty clear: to call up one of our creditors and have a little chat about our account, and then report back next week. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And I've embarrassed you enough, right, Rachel, about the no spend weekend?
Yeah. Oh man, I wish I could have done better. I wish I had better news to share, but maybe I'll make it up next week when I give a glowing report on the conversation I had with my creditor. We'll see.
Let's set the expectations here. This is not like a, who gets a better deal out of all of it kind of a situation. The point that we're trying to make is that we call up and we'll report back to you how each conversation goes. But to be honest, we may get nothing out of it. But it goes back to what I just told a reporter in an interview earlier. You never know unless you ask. Yeah. So that's the objective of this.
And, that's kind of the purpose of our personal finance challenges is we put all the advice to the test and let you guys know what works and what doesn't. And inevitably, some of it may not work for you. So we're going to find out the hard way.
And if you want to see us do something crazy or weird on personal finance issues, send us what you think our next challenge should be. We'll consider everything. I use the term consider.
Yes. Within reason.
Within reason. Yeah, just within reason. But this should be an interesting challenge. So tune in next week, everybody. And if you want to be updated when we're on live, subscribe, and you'll get notified when we're online. And of course, comment below if you want to share feedback, or if you have a question yourself. We try to answer all questions. So let us know what you think.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's